So today we're going to dive into a really powerful folktale by the famous Rajasthani writer Vijaydan Detha. On the surface, it's a story about buried treasure, but what it really digs up is something way more dangerous: human greed. We're going to see how the winds of time can totally change what we call justice.
All right, so picture this. A peaceful little village. Life here was simple, built on tradition, community. People worked, they talked, and they settled their problems the old-fashioned way. It was a world that felt permanent, like it would never change. Or, so they thought.
Let me ask you a question, right off the bat. Imagine you're digging in a field, but it's not your field, and you find a fortune, just buried in the dirt. Who does it belong to? You, the one who found it, or the person who owns the land? That one question, it's the spark that lights this whole story on fire. And that brings us to the first big turn in our story, the pot of gold. This is the moment that just shatters the village's calm, when an unbelievable, and really complicated, treasure is discovered. So meet our farmer, just an ordinary guy working a field that he doesn't even own. Then one day, his plow hits something hard. It's not a rock, it's a clay pot, and then another, and another. In an instant, his entire life of hard work is just flipped upside down by this incredible stroke of luck.
And we're not talking about one pot, we're talking about 7 of them. Each one is packed to the very top with gold coins from a long, long time ago. It's a fortune beyond anyone's wildest dreams, just sitting there in the dirt. But as you're about to see, a find like this is never, ever simple.
News about treasure travels faster than the wind, and that brings us to the heart of the conflict, the landlord's ploy. The powerful guy who owns the field hears about it, and you can bet he's on his way to make his claim.
So here you have it, the two sides of this whole mess. On the left, there's the farmer, whose hard work actually brought the gold into the light. And on the right, you've got the landlord, who's convinced that because he owns the land, he owns everything in it. And that treasure is sitting right between them.
And their arguments are so simple, but they get at something really deep. The farmer's claim is all about labor, right? Hey, I did the work, my hands found this. But the landlord's argument is all about property law. My land, my treasure. It's this classic fight between doing the work and having the ownership.
And this is where you really see the power dynamic at play. The landlord doesn't just argue his point. He's condescending, he's threatening. He just can't believe that a simple farmer would even dare to say no to him. This isn't just a disagreement anymore, it's a challenge to the way things have always been.
So, the landlord's threats? They don't work. The farmer stands his ground. So what does the landlord do? He escalates. And that leads us to the next part of the story, the punchy ad's verdict. He takes the whole issue to the village's highest authority, the Council of Elders. And the farmer? He's okay with this. He has faith in the old ways, right? He believes in the elders' wisdom. He truly thinks that justice, real justice, will see things his way. He's putting his entire future on the line, hoping for a fair decision. But here's the thing. The panchayat doesn't rule based on feelings, it rules based on tradition. And their logic? It lines up perfectly with the landlord's. The law of the land is what matters. If you own the dirt, you own everything in it. The farmer's hard work, his incredible luck, it means nothing. For the farmer, this verdict is absolutely crushing. But then, there's a twist. See, the landlord, in his arrogance, had made this big public vow that he wouldn't touch the gold unless the farmer gave it to him willingly. So the panchayat, stuck with that, orders the gold to be reburied. Nobody gets it, it goes right back into the earth, almost like it was never found. So the gold is buried again, but the story, man, it is not over. Not by a long shot. This is where the tale takes a huge leap forward, 1 generation later. Because you can bury treasure, but you can't bury a grudge. That sense of injustice, it just festered, and it was passed down from father to son.
So, time marches on. A whole generation comes and goes. The original farmer and landlord, they're long gone. The world itself is different now. There's a new king, there are new rules, and there's a new, much more ruthless generation that's inherited this old fight. The winds of time, they've definitely shifted.
And now, we've got the great-grandsons of the original farmer and landlord, standing face to face. They've grown up hearing this story of lost treasure and what they see as injustice. But these guys, they have zero interest in the patient, traditional ways of their great-grandfathers. Yeah, there's no going to the panchayat this time around. No long debates about points of law or who's right or wrong. This new wind of time is much harsher, much more direct. The old world formalities are gone.
Patience has officially run out. The argument that started with words is now going to be settled with steel.
And just like that, in a flash of violence, they kill each other. The great-grandsons of the farmer and the landlord end their family feud by spilling each other's blood on the exact same piece of land where the treasure was found. A brutal, tragic, and very final end to the argument.
So the feud's over, settled in the most brutal way possible. But what about the treasure, and what happens to the village? This brings us to the final act, driven by the new winds of time. And believe me, the story has one last bitter twist.
Well, the new king gets word of all this bloodshed and, of course, the hidden treasure. He sends in his soldiers. They dig up all 7 pots of gold and take them for the state. And as for the village, to punish them for all the chaos, they burn it to the ground. In the end, because of all that greed, everyone lost absolutely everything.
And this brings us right back to that title, Samay Samay ki Hawa, the winds of time. The story's saying that every generation has its own spirit, its own Hawa. The old wind was one of tradition and law, even if it felt unjust. But the new wind, that was about impatience and violence, a brutal solution that just ended up destroying everything. And that's really the question the story leaves you with, isn't it? I mean, sure, it's a cautionary tale about greed, but it's also asking something much deeper about what we call progress. It makes you wonder if the new ways of settling our problems are always an improvement. When the old winds of time fade away, what do the new winds bring? And what do they sweep away forever?